walked through her life feeling trapped and scared, but nobody else could see this. It was her husband who made her feel this way. After they got married, he gradually began to control her life more and more, telling her where she could go, who she could see, and what she could do, and snaring her in and tightening his trap. Sarah had tried to protest. She had argued, she had threatened to leave him. But he responded by holding a gun to her head and telling her that the next time she defied him would be her last. So she suffered in silence over the next few years, trying to hide her abuse from her 3 children. Her husband rarely physically hurt her. All he had to do was look toward the closet where he kept his gun and then look back at Sarah, and she knew that she had to obey him, make him happy, because he was threatening to kill her if she didn't. When he began to direct his abuse toward the children, Sarah knew they had to leave. She filed for divorce and did not want any contact with her husband or for him to know where they were living. But the court said that he had a right to see his children. Sarah's accusations of domestic violence were not believed. She had no evidence of physical abuse, no photos of injuries, no emergency room visits. He never left a mark on her. All he had to do was look toward his gun. When the court assigned visitation rights, Sarah was nervous about his first visit with the children, so her mother offered to be there when he came to pick them up. When he arrived, he walked into the house and he murdered Sarah, her mother, and all 3 of their children with the gun he had kept in the closet. I first learned of Sarah when I received an email from an organization I follow that tracks gun violence. When I saw the subject line, I braced myself for bad news. Given that my specialty is studying laws that impact intimate partner violence, I am inundated with emails like these. And to be honest, I'm emotionally numb. I have lived with the knowledge of these crimes for a long time, ever since my best friend was abused by her boyfriend in high school. And it is simply too much for me to take in emotionally. So I do what I can on the research side, investigating what laws may actually work to prevent intimate partner homicide and potentially mass shootings related to intimate partner violence. And along the way, I've learned some tragic things, some fascinating things, and even a few hopeful things. Because I study these tragic events, whenever a mass shooting is committed by a domestic violence offender, I get a lot of calls from the media. Like in 2017, when 26 people were murdered and 20 more were injured by a shooter at a small church in Texas. The shooter had a history of domestic violence. My phone rang off the hook that week. Reporters wanted to know, is there a link between domestic violence and mass shootings? They remembered other shooters who had histories of domestic violence. They asked me over and over again, is domestic violence a predictor of mass shootings? Here's what I told them. Half of mass murders, defined in the research as the killing of 4 or more people in one event, involve the killing of family members, often including intimate partners. In other words, half of mass murders are domestic violence. And the majority of mass murders in this country are committed with guns. No other weapon even comes close. A typical mass murder is that of a woman and her children and maybe her mother or a friend being shot by her intimate partner during or just after separation. Many of these occur in the context of custody disputes. There were 156 family mass murders between 2006 and 2016, 68% of which were committed with guns. 49% of the victims were children. But unless you're a gun violence researcher like me, you probably won't hear about the shootings that occur in the home, regardless of whether one person or 5 people were killed. The national news media likes to focus on the shootings that occur in public, where someone shoots strangers. Those are the shootings that occupy our worries. We hear about them and we worry about the randomness they seemingly have, because that randomness suggests that anyone could be a victim at any time. Like you, I worry about my children's safety, indeed the safety of all children at school. However, the majority of children who are killed in these events are killed in family mass murders, not mass murders that occur in public. If we want to reduce the number of children who are dying, then we probably want to intervene in domestic violence. Believe it or not, most days I'm more hopeful than despairing, and that's because we already know some solid strategies to reduce intimate partner homicide without violating Second Amendment rights. Some states have laws that rigorous research suggests save lives. These laws have the potential to save more lives if implemented throughout more jurisdictions. Here's the first law that my research suggests saves lives. In some states, if you're under a domestic violence restraining order, you cannot purchase or possess a gun if you are a current or former spouse of, have a child with, or lived with the victim. Notice that dating partners aren't on that list of relationships. So in some states, if you're dating your abuser, you simply will not be protected by the firearm restriction under state law. There are states that have expanded their list of relationships to include dating partners. And my research suggests that those states experience an associated 12% reduction in intimate partner homicide. That's right, a 12% reduction. This suggests that we can make a difference in a problem that many see as unsolvable. Those states that don't extend their firearm restrictions to dating partners, however, see no measurable reduction in intimate partner homicide. Here's the second law that 2 studies suggest save lives. If you're under a domestic violence restraining order and you are prohibited from possessing a gun, a judge can order you to relinquish any guns you already possess. This one is a no-brainer. If you cannot legally possess a gun, wouldn't we want the justice system to make sure that any guns you already possess are relinquished? This law is associated with a 10 to 12% reduction in intimate partner homicide. People are safer when the agencies within the justice system work together to ensure relinquishment of guns that are now possessed illegally, instead of simply allowing prohibited people to keep their guns. If we want more people to be safer from gun violence, then we probably want more states to enact these laws and more judges, prosecutors, and law enforcement officers to implement and enforce them. Here's the third law that my research suggests saves lives. In some states, if you've been convicted of a violent misdemeanor crime, you cannot purchase or possess a gun for a few years. This law is associated with a 23% reduction in intimate partner homicide. 23% is huge. And notice that I didn't say that they have to be convicted of a domestic violence misdemeanor crime. No, the law I'm talking about applies to violent misdemeanor convictions regardless of the relationship between the offender and the victim. Why might this law have such an impact? I think it's because it covers dangerous people who might otherwise slip through the cracks. The abuser who hasn't been convicted of domestic violence, but was convicted of assault of an acquaintance or stranger, for example. Only a few states have these laws. And one more thing. When I say that these laws are associated with reductions in intimate partner homicide, I am not just talking about intimate partner homicides committed with guns. I'm talking about the total number of intimate partner homicides. I often hear people say, if someone wanted to kill someone else and they couldn't get a gun, they'd just kill them some other way, so these gun laws are pointless. But if people who wanted to kill their intimate partners but legally couldn't access guns just used other weapons to kill them, then we would expect to see roughly the same number of intimate partner homicides after these laws are passed. But that's not what we see. We see a reduction in intimate partner homicide, suggesting that these laws save lives. When I tell this to reporters, that half of mass murders involve family member and intimate partner victims, I always make sure to mention that there's a greater number of intimate partner homicides that involve one or two more victims, and a greater number still of single victim intimate partner homicides. I do this to emphasize that intimate partner homicide and intimate partner violence are not just problems because they might be related to mass shootings. They are problems in their own right, and they deserve an aggressive response. I am aware that I am far from the only person who is growing numb to mass shootings, to intimate partner homicides, and to intimate partner violence. Our whole country is growing numb. And the next time one of these events occurs, many of us will shake our heads and say, what a tragedy. Someone should do something about this. And someone else, some well-meaning person, will respond, yes, we should do something. But what is there to be done? Beyond the backdrop of these mind-numbing statistics and all the human heartbreak behind them, there is something we can do. The existing research is clear. We understand what works. We understand how to reduce intimate partner homicide. Some states already have these laws. Some states have had these laws for over 25 years. And so we have real evidence of the effectiveness of real, actual policies. Policies that somehow manage to balance an individual's rights with safeguarding people's lives. Personally, I hope that the states that currently lack these policies, policies based on evidence, based on a record of positive results, enact them as soon as possible, today even. Yes, we are numb, and yes, we are in shock, but we know what to do. Thank you.